We'll get started. Who just jumped on for us? Is that Mark? Okay, Mark, welcome. Everyone, welcome to our meeting. We're still a little bit short-staffed. Andy said he's gone. Mark's with us online. And welcome to our meeting today. So we have an audience. I mean, that's something usually we don't have. So it's kind of nice. Let's start into the agenda. Is everyone had a chance to look at the agenda? Any questions, comments? Can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
Okay,
I'll go ahead and second.
so Mark did the first, Todd did the second. So Dick, do you want to start us on a vote?
Aye.
Mark,
Hauser, aye.
Todd,
Spriggs, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. The minutes. Did we have? I saw the July ones. Were the August ones in there also with the attachment?
It's July and the special meeting.
Those special. Okay, everyone have a chance to look through those.
Yes.
Questions, comments?
No.
And anyone have a motion on that one then?
I'll go ahead and motion to approve the minutes from the Power Board meeting of July 5th.
I'll go ahead and second.
And the one from August?
End of August.
In August?
Oh, we can do them both, yes.
Yeah.
The one from August as well.
Okay,
Then I'll
so Dick
second.
first and Todd did our second. So Mark, do you want to start us on a vote?
Hauser, aye.
Dick?
Saunders, aye.
Todd?
Spriggs, aye.
And Dinsmore, aye. So, all right, before we start into the new business, any questions or comments from the audience? Or are you just here for later?
You'll get plenty of comment from me here shortly.
Okay, so you're later on the agenda. Oh, okay, nice to meet you. Gotta bring the boss, make sure you're okay. Well, then, let's go on to new business. You got it.
I tried to warn you, Mike.
You know.
So, the new business today is Washington City has revised their underground standard for the power department. And it's 74, 75 pages of great reading material. So if you need some bedtime material, specifications on transformers is a good place to start. We did put together a cut sheet for everybody that shows the major changes.
We're not going to go through page by page.
And we very well could. My time is yours, Mike, so you let me know what you want to do.
Significant changes should be sufficient.
Okay. I mean, like I said,
Sorry, Mike.
you guys are leading this out, so let me know how you want to go through this. One of the major changes, and it's been a change for us, and it's actually been beneficial the last little while, is we have contractors that do our new installation on all of our projects. So a subdivision comes in and we have certified contractors that go through and they will bid the process, they'll install everything according to our standards. And this was put in place by the city council years ago, and in an era of crazy lead times and crazy prices, it's actually benefited the city. We don't have to stock that material. We don't have to put it in. What we do is we certify the contractors every 2 years. So they'll come in and they'll send all their employees they want certified in Washington. And they pay a fee for the first time. They come in for materials that they'll use during that training. And we give them a presentation on our underground standards. If they're new, they'll take a test on those. And if they don't pass the test, they get to come back and see me again. It's a really good time. And they also have a practical certification. Well, they'll terminate an elbow of primary cable, and we'll make sure they understand how to do it and do it right. And that certification is good for 2 years. So if they're in good standing and their inspections go well and everything like that, and they do at least 2 jobs in Washington City in that 2-year period, they can come back to the class, and there's no cost required. So they're a contractor in good standing, and there's no cost associated with their NICS class. If they're not in good standing and inspections didn't go well and they obviously don't understand things, we'll invite them back for another retry.
So what was the change on that?
We just standardized some things. The change on it was the time period.
The 2-year?
Yeah, what happened was they'd get a certification class and they'd get their card and it would be unlimited. And it didn't matter if you changed companies or it didn't matter. So right now, if KV Electric came in and they did a certification class and I decided to go work somewhere else, I would have to come back in and get certified because it stays with the company.
So it stays with the company, not the employees.
Correct.
So
Yep.
if they hire new employees, do they have to have them certified?
Yes, they do. If they want them to do primary work, they do. So usually what happens is they work their way up. You go from the trenches to working your way up into pulling the cable and terminating and stuff like that. So they have several years before they have to come in and certify.
Are any of the other cities doing this?
I know St. George and Hurricane have certification programs. Both St. George and Hurricane do not let contractors terminate wire. We're the only city that allows that. So, but that was the change on it. Was basically the time. We put the time, and then they actually have to do a project. You can't come get certified and do one project and still hold your card. You have to be doing work constantly. It's not something that you. It's not like riding a bike. If you're not doing it constantly, you're going to forget something. So, any other questions? Okay, our second point is we're trying to go more online, and we have redone our online submittal process through Build Review. It's through every department in the city just to make things similar and the same. We're similar to St. George in all of our online submittals and everything like that, and that's one thing we updated in the underground standards just for ease of submittals. We're trying to match the other cities around, so it's familiar territory when they come to Washington.
So that's like subdivision plats and.
Subdivision plats, that's
and-
commercial development, residential development, all of it's
All of it's
online. Yep. And this goes as far as we require cable tensions when they pull wire to be submitted, so we know that they've been pulled in correctly, and that helps me know that they've been pulled in correctly, and it helps me on the warranty process. So if you install a transformer, we actually record that date and everything like that, so we can start the warranty process on the manufacturer's warranty. So, any questions on bullet point 2? All right, moving on. Our fee schedule has been updated to reflect additional costs and to account for time for people out in the field, including for design and inspection. And yes, there will probably be questions on this, because anytime there's a fee associated with anything, they want to know why. So everything that's not highlighted in yellow has stayed the same. We haven't, all of our after-hour stuff with our guys, our commercial power connection fees, residential fees, all those things have stayed the same. We haven't upped those. We have added a residential power review by service and a commercial review by service. And what that is I actually go in and we review them, and we actually do the power design on residential and commercial. We'll size their transformer. We'll actually design their power system coming to their store or whatever they're submitting. So we associate a fee with that for time and inspections and everything like that out in the field. Also, oh yeah. So historically, there has been no charge for that. So we're just trying to update and account for time used. Same thing with the solar residential. Solar charges and everything like that. We've had a solar meter fee forever, and that's staying the same. One thing we did add is there is a resubmittal charge. So I can't tell you how many plans we have sitting on the desk that are waiting to be resubmitted to us. And if that plan comes back and it's the same as it was when we send out, that's where that fee kicks in. Is we don't like to review things 4 or 5 times and have nothing changed. So if it's submitted to them and they resubmit it back to us and nothing's been changed, that fee is applicable. And we put the utilities reinspect fee in there also. And this is not just for the power department. This is for all utilities. So Public Works could use this too. They go out on a job site and stuff's not installed to plan and everything like that. They have this option to say, hey, before we come back, you need to pay this reinspect fee for time. So, and then we have another thing we haven't been charging for is residential subdivision design. And depending on the size of the subdivision, this could be quite extensive, which we decided to tier the costs on it, just because of the time spent. I can tell you that $800 for 75 lots is probably a pretty good deal, because you spend a lot of time trying to coordinate phasing and transformer and equipment and stuff like that. So that's just basically what we've done. We tried to account for where our time's going and everything like that. And tried to associate a cost to what that's going to do. And that's design and inspection and certification of products. So, I mean, if you can swallow this one down, I mean, the rest is going to be free sailing, guys. So
is this just, did you guys just sit down as a department and figure these fees, or was this based on any fee study? Just internal costs? Okay.
Internal costs, and we have reviewed with we have coordinated with other cities. I've talked to my counterparts in other cities on what they're doing and how they're doing it. So
are all these new fees that have not been
historically they have
or
not
is
been
it
charged from here on out.
increases and adjustments in fees?
Yeah, we haven't been charging anybody at all for
On
solar
those.
or residential or commercial design. So any of the design stuff, the inspection stuff out in the field has not been charged up to this point.
So when a commercial plan comes in or a developer presents his drawings, it doesn't have normally the loading and so forth done?
No, so what they do is they come, say a Maverick comes in and say, hey, I want to put a store on Buena Vista Boulevard and Green Springs Drive. They come in and say, this is my load. This is my desired voltage. I want 12240. And the power department actually comes in and we'll size their transformer for their store. We'll design their powered system to supply them with power.
So you actually do the design, develop
Correct.
the bill of materials. And now, does the city provide that equipment? Or is that's then charged to whoever the developer is? It's
So
on their property, right?
That's where the certified contractors come in. So we as a city, like I said, it was determined by city council that we don't install new installations. So the certified contractor would take the plan that I designed, and they would go on site and they would bid that job, and then they would install that for the customer, and then the city would be right there inspecting, making sure it's installed according to the underground standards, and then we would certify it. And as soon as we certified that and energized that cable, it would become city
And it's back to
property.
the city property.
Correct.
Are all of these changes something that goes before the city council?
All of this will go before the city council. Yeah.
So this is just for our review and recommendation, and then it goes
Correct.
to the city council.
One last question. How often do you end up having to redo these resubmittals on commercial or residential? I can see the solar contractors being a one-shot wonder in some cases, but
Dick, do you really want the answer on that?
a lot.
There's
Hence why you've implemented the change.
there's a lot of hand holding that goes on through a process like that. So
Seems reasonable.
yeah, I mean, that's the best way I can put it. They're a design professional. They know their business, so and I understand everybody's busy, and you know, if you send me back a plan and it doesn't have the I's dotted and the T's crossed, but I can see there's substantial improvement on it, obviously I'm not going to hit you with a re-review fee. It's just the stuff that gets sent back to you every time that there's nothing done on it. That's when that may apply.
Sounds good.
Okay, most of the other stuff are just procedural stuff for us. We were having some problems with conduits being hit, so we dropped our conduit depths from 42 inches.
Question, one
Yes.
quick question.
Sure.
If we're doing the design,
Mm-hmm.
what, is there an indemnity being signed that we're being released from any liability? Okay, so it's just up to,
Correct, up to the meter.
okay.
And it turns back to the city.
Yeah, so everything from the meter back turns back to the city once it's approved and energized.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. So we increased our depths on both secondary power conduits and primary power conduits to 3 feet and 4 feet, trying to get them a little bit deeper. Number 5, when we have risers going up with large wire, we have them put bridge switches on, and a bridge switch is just basically an open point on the line. So if I want to de-energize that wire that's coming down the pole, I can open that switch on the line, and I can actually de-energize the wire. And it's more of a safety for the crews. They can have a visual open point that underground wire has been open. So that's one of the safety features that we've installed in the underground standards. And if you have questions, go ahead and pipe in. I'm just going to move forward through the bullet points here. Our primary wire sizes have been revised in which we took out a wire size. Basically, we have 2 wire sizes. We have a 750 wire size, which is our backbone feed, which packs multiple subdivisions and everything like that, and then a 1-aught wire size, which is our day-to-day feeding transformers and stuff like that. So we took out the 4-aught wire size because it just didn't make sense to have the added capacity where we're choking it down when we terminate. So when we terminate 4-aught wire, it only has 200. The termination only has 200 amps of capacity on it, where the 4-aught wire would have more. So we're sticking with the 1-aught because we have 200 amp terminations. They seem to work well together. We're not choking anything off, and we're reducing costs. So, like I talked about, pulling tensions are required, and that's just for us and for warranty issues on number 7. We added some provisions for directional boring. If they decided they wanted directional bore or needed directional bore power conduits, provisions are now in underground standards, so we have something to go with. We're seeing a lot of that lately. Street lighting's been revised to add LED lighting, and we've established a standard in Washington. So if Todd was to come in and say, hey, I'm going to build a subdivision and everything like that, if he would choose from a standard approved lighting fixture, he could go out, purchase those lighting fixtures, which are stocked here locally, install them, and he would have no review fees, no charges from the city, because they've already been pre-reviewed, pre-approved for installation. If you wanted to bring your own light to install in your subdivision, you would have to go through a review with those costs.
So those old mercury vapor barn lights.
I like the color, but that's about all I like on it. So that kind of streamlines things, and we were able to work with the manufacturers and get great warranties on them. So if anything goes wrong with these lights within a 10-year period, it's warranted by the company. We take the light off, ship it back to the company, they ship us a new fixture. So they've been great to work with. We have revised our current transformer section, and we've specified what what current transformers we're using. We've defined our enclosures. In the past, we'd allow CTs to be installed inside the transformers. For safety reasons and different things like that, we're requiring enclosures to be mounted on the building, so they can install them in there. It's a little bit of an additional cost, but for the turnaround and the safety and everything like that, it's worked out well. We've had 3 or 4 commercial applications in the last 6 months that have used them, and it's worked out really well. And with the CTs specified and everything like that, we have suppliers here in town. There's a lot less lead time. They know what we want, what our standard is, and so they can just call up the supply house saying, hey, this is what I need, and it's been working out fairly well. So can you pull up the erosion? Okay. Off the top of my head, let me see. It's right there. Number 6. One thing about the underground standards is Nikki spent a lot of time. So the online standards have links to everything. So what this is erosion control. So if we have power equipment set on a slope and the slope's greater than 12 inches, they're required to retain that soil. If not, we get stuff like this where you can see where the dirt's been banked up against the transformers, and we change a lot of these out. And like it or not, all the easy land's been developed. So we're building on hillsides and we're doing things like that. So in the subdivision phase, we require them to retain that dirt up to 6 inches past the fill line. So we don't have the problems with the equipment. The equipment can sit in there, and we don't have the problems with the water and the soil corroding the equipment. We're hoping for longer lifetimes on stuff. And the last two things have dealt primarily with safety. We've increased our grounding size for our ground wires in our vaults. And what that's done, this is one of our switches, and I'll get to this in a minute, but you can see the cable coming off. You can see the black cable going up and terminating in the switch, and then the copper cable coming down. In our vaults, we used to tie that to smaller wire, and it would kind of choke it off a little bit. Now we've upsized that wire, so we're upsizing the fault path. So if anything happened, our equipment would be able to react faster. It'd be able to reclose faster and close things off, and breakers would be able to open. This is what they call a dead front switch. And basically it's just that. All the cable is sealed. You have caps on it. There's no exposed live parts. And that's what we did. We did this for the safety of the crew and everything like that. There's no exposed parts. If you have to get in the basement or anything like that, if you take a look at this switch, you can see those copper plates right in front by the insulators. Those are all live parts. So you have 7,000 volts on each one of those. Where on the dead front, everything's sealed. There's no exposed parts. It's just a lot safer way to go. And we lucked out with availability, especially in today's market. You're talking 30 weeks to get one of the old switches, where we could have one of our new design. They stock in Salt Lake, and we can have them in 2 days. So if we run into a bind and we don't have anything on in our yard, so far we've had good luck with it.
Are we changing out old ones, or is this just new ones that are?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when we do have a change out and everything like that, we do change out to the new spec. So we've had one that we've had to change out up by the fire station on Buena Vista, just to help with the feed right there, and it works on our old basements, and it's just a nice upgrade, safety wise and everything like that. So knock on wood, hopefully things work out like that on all of our change outs. But yeah, so if something gets hit, we would go with the new specification on it. So also We've updated our GIS procedures and everything like that for equipment labeling, cable labeling, everything like that, and that helps the crews know where they're at. Transformers and switches and vaults have specific numbers, so they can pull it up online and say, hey, this is the transformer I'm at. Hypothetically, it tells me it goes this way, and then the labeling of the cable shows cable length, direction, and what transformer or switch that it ends in. So we're trying to dial things in. So our electronic version and our in the field version are the same. So that's what we're trying to do by updating our GIS stuff. Is there any questions before I turn the time over for something more exciting?
I'm glad that you cut it down to your items.
Hey,
that
Dick,
highlighted, because I tried, you're right, that is insomniac's dream, is trying to read those specs.
So if Mike, you know, I had to go through every one of those pages multiple times.
Well, I think it was below my pay grade.
So if Mike wants to go through it, I'm on page 4. We only have 71 pages left.
I'll be honest, I did skim through and look at everything. I didn't read it, but I did look through it. And
Okay. Well, we really appreciate being able to run this by you guys. We really do appreciate your service and everything on the power board. And with that, I'll sit down.
Thanks, Mike.
Good job.
Just a couple comments on that before we leave. My intent is to do an initial presentation here tonight, and then we'll have it on next month's agenda for you to make a recommendation to the council, hopefully. And I would suspect with you, as well as probably the council, the added fees might be the most interesting part to discuss. Most of the rest, like I say, were primarily done for safety, and a lot of these we've been doing for a while, and we just need to get the documents up to speed. I think the last one revision was 2015, so it's been 7, coming up on 8 years since those have been revised. So,
Out of curiosity, I'm familiar with low voltage situations where you use the National Electric Code for a guide. Is there a similar for utility?
there is. It's called the National Electric Safety Code.
Uh-huh.
It's the NESC instead of the NEC. It's not as cookbooky, if you will, as the NEC. The NEC is very regimented.
And they
you
redo
do
it
this.
like every 2 years, I think.
Correct. And ours, and the NESC, I think, is every 3 years rotation. And so it provides for clearances over roads or for overhead lines. The underground section is, I don't know what, maybe 10 pages. It's not very long. And so when you cross into the utility world, I always tell people we're allowed to use our brains more than the ones on the NEC side. The NEC is done by insurance companies.
Right.
So it's ultra conservative. And so we can size transformers based on actual load, not what the NEC calculations are and those kind of things. So yes, there is another code, but
So does the city pick out a specific year of publication and then say that our standards are to be no less than this publication, or
we just do the most recent
current-
one.
the most current one?
Yeah.
with these changes that we've done, is there any additional changes that we should be looking at and making sure we add? Or is it easy enough to go in and do, for example, EV charging stations coming up and stuff?
You know, primarily like on that case, it would be addressed primarily by the NEC. And, you know, as long as they comply with that, and if they want to service, like the one over at Walmart, the Electrify America, that went through that whole process on our side and the NEC side. So
The good thing is, Mike, we work in conjunction with the building department. So they inspect the NEC, and we put our stuff into the NESC. So
Okay.
both sides are being covered pretty well.
and basically for all practical purposes, the meter is the dividing line between the two codes that apply. There are some little bit of overlaps here and there, but for all practical purposes, the meter is where one code applies and then the other takes over.
So the fees don't seem to be outrageous. Who do we think this is going to affect the most? Is it developers? Is it going to cut down on probably potential issues and mistakes and resubmittals and things like that?
Well, that's part of the hope. In the case of like the solar applications, you can tell most of the companies, there's some that do a better job than others, but most of the companies have a cookie cutter process. Obviously they go through. For example, like we require the production meter. I had, 4 or 5 in a row that didn't have the production meter. You'd think after I sent back the first one, they'd realize 2, 3, 4, and 5 would also need that. But it's just a challenge. And then Mike even showed me a project today that, he's redlined it and the drawings in the field aren't matching what's been redlined, and it gets real frustrating. And so that's part of the goal. It's not intended to be punitive, but between Mike and myself, we spend a lot of hours a month either doing development or reviewing the solar, and we talk a lot back and forth. And right now that time is not being recovered, those costs. So
This is one avenue we took. The other avenue we took is everything's online now. So we're trying to streamline the process. So for the developers, I mean, they know what's required because they have to submit it for us to get it now. So right on the front screen, it says we need this, and this for us to do your review and design. So we're trying to streamline the process and everything like that. We're in no means trying to slap somebody, we're trying to increase their costs or anything like that. She's probably yelling at me right now. So yeah, so the fee schedule is only part of the process. We're trying to streamline everything with online submittals and everything like that, trying to make it easier for them to come in and do business in Washington. But we're like I said, we're trying to recover lost time. We're trying to recover time that is actually being used with a fee. So, sorry, Lexi.
any more questions on that? Again, so we'll give you a whole nother month to read and look at the exciting drawings. And the other thing, the links will provide us the ability, if we change something, a grounding wire size or something like that, we can just change the file on the server, and these links will still now connect to the most recent one instead of, well, which one's the most recent one. So that's another big improvement we've made, is I guess modernized it. And again, Mike and Nikki have done a great job on that. So I'm old school and like my paper, so.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Well, thank you for your efforts and for going through this, putting up that. No, I like a lot of the changes and you know, and making that easier. So, okay. And yeah, so we'll look again that next month then. And so let's go on to number 4, regular business operations report.
Okay, thank you. We'll start off with, I guess, 2 sad notes. Is Tyler Jacobson, who was our crew foreman, he took a different position at Summit Line Construction. And then Nikki, this will be her last meeting with us. I think she's got a couple more days and we're cracking the whip till the end. but she's been great, and we wish her the best. On the foreman side of things, we've moved or promoted Caden Levitt, who was one of our linemen, as taking that position now. And of course, then that leaves a void in his position. So we're in the process of filling or receiving applications for both of those positions. So that'll be a project for tomorrow, is to sort through lots of applications. So again, we've enjoyed both Tyler and Nikki, and wish them the best, but who knows, they may come back. So,
One comes back.
as Mike mentioned, and he could probably speak long and hard on how many new developments we've got going in. Pretty much almost any vacant land in our service territory, I almost can't think of very many that don't have some form of proposal, or we've seen some sort of drawing on. You know, some are further along, some may happen the way they're proposing, but Mike's very busy trying to stay on top of that, as well as the building department and all the other departments. But yeah, I honestly can't think of hardly a parcel that's of any size at all that doesn't have something that somebody's at least said, what do you think about this kind of idea? So interest rates may be up, but at least on the commercial side, and I think a large majority of those are commercial right now. So it keeps going. And the Exit 13 project, or excuse me, Exit 11, the Main Street interchange project continues to move forward. We've got the materials on order. I've got to review a cost estimate so we can get our agreement with UDOT finalized, so we could actually start doing some work. You may or may not have noticed up there, I think there was six houses on that block, and all but 3 of them are now demolished. I think the rest stayed till December, something like that. And so that project you'll start seeing moving fairly quick. I think their UDOT plans to bid in November, with construction starting early 2023. So it'll be an interesting project. So for our, it's been a couple months really since we've had an official meeting, other than we had the one item agenda one last month. Our peak for July was 51 megawatts, which was about a half a megawatt less than last year. July, we didn't have, current week excluded, an extended super hot period in July or August, really. And our August peak was 46.6, so about 5 megawatts less than July. However, our September peak has exceeded the August peak, which is really unusual, at 47.6, and that was, I think, last Friday. I suspect if I looked on here now, today may exceed that. And so what that's been doing, in July and August, most of the wholesale power prices were in anywhere from approximately 70 to 165, maybe a few hours at 200. However, this last week has been, I guess, a real challenge as far as wholesale power procurement. Pricing today has been $1,000, $1 a kilowatt hour, which is not good. And we've had 6+ days with pricing in the 600 to 900, lasting 7 to 10 hours a day. So if you hit that peak for an hour or two, it's, obviously concerning, but not quite the same as when it starts at noon at that level. And so Mike looks much cleaner than he did this morning when he was repairing one of the generators. Him and Tyler Stocks had made some repairs, and thank goodness Hurricane had the parts we needed to do that. We had an exhaust leak, and they're real temperamental engines, so if you have a little hole about that size in your exhaust, it doesn't output quite the same. So we've been keeping those running as best we can. They've run really well this summer, but we're still exposed to, by how we purchase our wholesale power, we try to follow the load as best we can. Of course, September's generally we drop off. And so the amount of power we purchased for September was not as much as July and August. And so it's been kind of a double, triple whammy. When we've had the hot periods in July and August, it might have been localized hot here, but not necessarily in the Northwest or California or vice versa. But this one, it's the entire West simultaneously. And that's what's really driving those prices really high. And so we're going to have to look really close when we get the September power bill from UAMPS, which won't occur till like October 25th. There's a chance that we may have to consider using some of the rate stabilization fund to help cover those costs, which is what that fund is intended for. But it's definitely a real eye opener that we've got to keep an eye on that, because the wholesale pricing in general, the historical trends have kind of gone out the window. That low load hours now in some months are higher than high load hours, which historically has never been that. It's usually been half price or less. And so things have been flipping, and myself and Jake and Mike and others were gonna put a lot of time in figuring out, dialing that in of what we should be buying ahead of time. So we'll keep you posted on the impacts. I honestly don't know what those are at this point in time, because UAMPS buys X megawatts from this supplier for Y dollars and this other one there, and we end up with somewhat of a blended average of all those. So hopefully I think today will be our worst day, pricing wise as well as load. So hopefully if everything stays on for the next few hours, we'll be okay. And I've really tried to turn up that air conditioner, but it's still cold in here. Jeremy. We have put out several Facebooks requesting people to conserve as best they can and those kind of things. It's hard to determine how effective that is when people are hot. They'll probably, I'll let my neighbor do that. But we've tried to encourage people to bump their thermostat up just a little bit, and it makes a big difference to us. So
is this something that maybe leads more to the AI, or the
AMI type metering and stuff?
Yeah,
It potentially could. I think that we could,
things just continue to get crazier and crazier
because it would open the door. I don't know if I want to go down that complicated path, but it could give us the capability, if we wanted to come up with some more creative rate structures that would be more tied to ours, because we have our inclining tier, but our top tier is 15 cents. Well, if we're having to pay $1, you can't do that very long. It's not a good business model. So
it's just hard to encourage the public to make changes unless they can actually see.
They see, or effectively to fill in the pocketbook of what that's doing. So but yeah, that would, right now we don't have that capability with the meters we have, and so it would open the door that we could look at some of those things. So Tyler Stocks over the weekend, I think he ran 12 hours a day, and I think he's 11 or 12 hours today as well, or over the weekend. And I anticipate we'll run pretty hard through at least Friday, and then it's supposed to get back closer to where we'd expect in the 90s pretty bad when 90s sound good, but they really do right now. As far as projects go, on 300 North, that project's completed with the exception of removing the old poles when the communications, you've heard that song before. Quail Ridge Drive, I think it was about a 4 spans of overhead that we put underground for some clearance issues. It was the easiest and actually most economical way to do that one. And again, the old poles are still there waiting for the communication companies to move off. The Main Street Substation project, we've got virtually all the materials on order. Some are coming in. The challenge with that project is going to be when to pull the trigger, because we have to have a reasonable confidence that we're going to get the materials so we can get it back together by next summer. For example, the circuit breakers were supposed to be here in May. Now we're supposed to see them sometime this month. The relay panels were supposed to be here in July. They're supposed to be here the latter part of this month. So it makes you a little nervous to tear apart the front end of that substation without having all the materials to put it back together. So we're analyzing that, and at whatever point we pull that trigger. And at worst case, we have talked internally that we'd have a contingency plan to put something temporarily in with some wood poles. And if we got partway into the project and something didn't show up, I mean, a simple piece of hardware, they were showing 6 months out that normally you could get next date out almost any time up until this last little while. So it's challenging to put that together. I've been reporting on the number of solar applications the last little while. August we had 24, which was the second highest, only beat out by November of last year at 26. So that continues on a pretty rapid pace.
Hey, Rick,
Huh?
do we need to, I had my first experience of running into them, and the misinformation that they're giving out, do we need to implement something to that to the same effect as the contractors?
I think it's something worth considering. And I know Hurricane is, probably shouldn't specify people, but other area utilities are considering basically having a similar pre-qualified, at least that would require them to come in and yeah, something similar to what we've been doing. It would be a little different because they wouldn't be installing equipment or materials that would be ours in the end, but it would hopefully help with some of that misinformation. We've got a really good guidance document online, but unfortunately that still goes on. I mean, there's some really good companies and there's some that aren't so really good.
Well, and I think it's the local companies probably are giving out the right information. It's those companies that are coming in and doing quick sales and then they're leaving.
Yeah.
And they have people they'll drive down for the weekend or the week and hit sales really hard for companies
And you
that
can
have no idea. They're not even from this area.
And we can tell that just by where we get applications. We'll get a cluster of 4 or 5 in a subdivision or 2 that are adjacent to each other. So they've hit that area, and then they'll have another group that flies in another few days and throws them all up. And
I have discovered by saying you're on the power board, they kind of end their sales pitch and leave quick.
Mike's wife ran into that too. So along with that, an opportunity may be coming to at least have some of those discussions in a little more detail. Is in our current policy, we allow up to 2,500 kilowatts, and we're around 2,000 right now. If you add up everybody's peak output, I don't think we're getting that, but anyway, that's how it's written. It's based on installed KW. And so we're going to need to bump that up if we choose, which I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. And then also another area that we may want to consider, particularly, haven't really seen much on commercial, but on residential, some of these companies are getting, shall we say, quite creative and putting very large systems with 3 and 4 batteries and multiple inverters. And I think they're getting beyond what a typical home probably should have. There's one that's coming through that and there's nothing in code that says you can't derate their main breaker, and it's a large home down to 100 amps, so they can put this giant solar system on with batteries. As long as the solar system works, they'll probably be fine. But if it has a hiccup, I don't think that 100 amp breaker is going to be packing their house. It'll just trip. So I think we ought to at least consider and maybe have some discussions on how large that we want to allow on residential, or at least maybe tie it to a service size, something like that. So we'll probably in the next month or two be bringing that. And again, the main item would be just to bump that up so we're not outside of our current ordinance. But there are maybe some of these other issues we may want to consider. Because that has been a problem, is the misinformation, and then people get frustrated at the city because it's not what they were told. And and we went through the whole having to notarize because people were signing agreements that weren't the people that, they were basically forging names. And some utilities have actually required each customer to come in and sit down with them before they sign up. Unfortunately, by the time we see the application, they've probably already signed the documents with the company. So I would welcome ideas of how to maybe help that situation. And that's probably a good one. At least the company would have to come in, we'd sit down, explain our program, and then after that, I'd have to probably get with Thad from a legal standpoint. Can we restrict that way? And if he was good with that, then I don't see why we couldn't. And then it's not me meeting with 24 people in a month. It's hopefully we meet with 7 or 8, 10 companies and then get them understanding the program. And then if we hear company A is not following or telling people what our program, then I think we'd have the ability to say, sorry, you can't install in the city. Again, I probably need to get with that and make sure that's
I think we
kosher
did talk
thing to do.
about maybe doing some type of an informational video or something like that. Maybe that they would have to watch, or
Yeah, and maybe somewhere in between that.
where
yeah.
you don't have to meet with everybody, but everybody is required to do something.
Are you thinking more on the customer side or on the company side?
Customer side
Okay.
prior to.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Mike looks really good on camera, and so
Well, is there a permitting process that they go
Yes.
through?
Yeah.
So they have to, it's like a building permit, like you're building a swimming pool. You need to have a permit, right?
Yes, it's exactly like that. I mean, that's exactly what they do.
So they come with a set of plans and specifications, right? Who does the building department or is the power department?
Both.
But there's some companies that still aren't even getting permitted by the city, and they're going through doing door-to-door sales.
Right, well, they can sell it, but before the
These ones
homeowner,
I knew were not. They were not permitted by the city.
And to me, the electrical side, I'm not so worried about because we have multiple people reviewing it. In fact, this one that is a pretty complicated system with lots of nuances, we've actually sent to a third party, which our policy allows to have them review it and make comments before we respond back. But my bigger concern is they basically get told a lot of times that they won't have a power bill anymore. and that's just simply not true.
Yeah, so the building permit or the permit comes in and you have to approve it, but you don't know what has been told to the
Exactly,
client. And that's
exactly,
where
and that's the
problem
part
lies.
that we've
Well-
tried to do it in a couple different ways.
You could amend the building permit process to include some type of document from the homeowner that states the homeowner understands the following condition, boom, 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 including the fact that there is going to be a power bill. I mean,
Well, but by that point, the salesman's gone. Because that's what I caught our salesman. He actually went and said, no power bill, reduced power bill. And then he even commented about the fact that, oh, Washington City's almost out of the ability of being able to do solar because they've almost maxed out the number of permits they'll allow in the city.
So they want you to get in right now.
So yes, so
Okay.
he went and played 3 different ways. But see, by the time the permit's done, that's going to be 2-3 weeks after, because yes, they design a system. So that salesman's gone, but he's made promises to our homeowners.
well, then the other part of that would be to educate the homeowners, to make them understand that until the permitting process goes through and the paperwork's been signed, they shouldn't be paying anybody anything.
But then we're still the ones dealing with the mad homeowner.
Right, but what I'm saying is, as a courtesy information to the public, just like do things in the newsletter that we say, safety for streets, we should have something to the fact that this is a problem, that the salespeople find there is there's
have
one
that.
born every second, right? And they take advantage of people in the heat of passion. They want to do something good, and they
But
buy 'em.
unfortunately, at the same time, the agreement that they sign and now they're notarized, the agreement outlines what the program is. So they've signed a document. I mean, I assume there's probably some that will sign it without reading it.
Oh, that's probably
I
true.
don't know how to force people to make good choices on that, but
No.
I think we can do some things that would help. And like say we put that, what do we call it, the solar guide document, or that's really good, and there's a lot of good information in there.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, and again, by the time we see that permit, it's almost like we're too late because they've probably signed up with, and got the financing for it and all the different stuff that goes on. So be thinking of that and ideas. We will as well. When that comes forward, I think we could maybe add 2 or 3 fairly simple things. And maybe even a check mark that I've reviewed the guidance document. At least I'd say, well, here it says you did. We've really tried.
Rick, when was the last time we reviewed that as a board? Has that been reviewed, those guidelines?
We presented them, when was it, Nikki? About
It's
a
been
year ago?
year and a half.
It's
Okay.
been pretty
Last
recent.
looked at this
I think I recall seeing it. Or now, if we put something together, are we? I think maybe as a board, are we allowed to share that privately with our neighbors and stuff like that? That information.
The guide document?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's online.
Put a link on our Facebook pages to our neighbors and things like that.
I would think so.
Because I think that would help. Is what we could do. We could do a little bit of part that way. But
Yeah, it's all on the policy, and that guide document are all on the city website. So it's all public. So I don't see why.
Yeah, we just may need to go look at that stuff again.
that's what I'm thinking, especially in terms of this
Ideas.
conversation here, because there's some things I don't recall being on there.
Yeah, and we can, like everything, we can always improve, and you learn from. You think you got it all addressed, and then somebody comes along with a way to confuse it. And so, yeah. So look at that, and you can even take the opportunity to review that. But I would suspect at the rate we're going, we'll need to do that in October, November, probably.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Especially
and in
with
the
the new
past,
tax incentives coming on and things.
yeah, the end of the
More
year
extended.
usually ramps things up, and And to be honest, I'm not gonna deny a permit because we haven't had operational issues. You know, even if the timing doesn't work out perfect on that, you know, we can work through that. Last report on that, there is another fun document that will be coming, is the pole attachment document, but I didn't want to hit you with two at once, so we'll string those end to end. How's that?
Appreciate that.
And it's about similar reading and excitement level. So we'll be the truck inspections, our annual truck inspections will start tomorrow. The rubber gloves, is it every 6 months we send out for testing, which is a safety issue. The crew's actually been out in the Winter Haven area and doing a lot of, that's an older system, opening transformers and other equipment and labeling, bringing them up to our GIS standards. And so the standards help obviously with the new stuff going in, but we've been diligently trying to get the old stuff up to those same standards as well. But I think that particular area predates when the city bought the system, so it's 30 plus years old, and they found some interesting construction methods and things that will get corrected as well up there. So I think that's from the major operational side of things. They've been doing a lot of smaller projects, 2 or 3 poles here, 2 or 3 poles there. They found some with the pole tester from UAMPS that were bad, and we're replacing those. So again, just trying to improve system reliability and cost as low as we possibly can, which is a real challenge right now. So.
Okay, any other questions?
No?
All right, now on to UAMPS report.
And the first one isn't mine.
Oh, that's right. Todd gets to jump in on this one.
Oh, what's it?
UAMPS
Oh, the
conference
Conference
report.
Conference report. Yeah, we had a very enjoyable conference up in Logan. Dick was there with me, and it was very informative. There were a few things that, a lot of it were things that we had discussed already. But I thought some of the things that they pointed out, I'm trying to think the classes that I liked, or the discussions I liked the best, was the second day.
The new scale.
Yeah.
That was, I thought, the most informative. It was interesting too to listen to the different areas, like the folks from California talking about using hydrogen to supplement their gas-fired turbines, yet they've never really done it, and their concerns about other people talking about the fact they don't even know if the piping is going to be able to hold up to hydrogen. I mean, it was very informative for me because a lot of this is brand new. I mean, yeah, we've heard about power generation and different sort, but to actually see the prototypes and have people that know what they're talking about it was very good. I took probably 4 or 5 pages of notes, and for me that's a lot. My wife attended and went to all the meetings with me. She probably took 40 pages of notes. It is interesting. I thought that looking at what UAMPS has got, they have such a wide variety of power sources that they're investing in, and the fact that we actually do have the NuScale online, and you look at Edison and who's the one in Northern California, the power, but yeah, PG&E, they can't even do it because the state's not, they're putting their thumbs down on any nuclear. And so that's why they're being forced into some of these propositions like the hydrogen that they don't even know if it's going to work. But of course, they're getting a lot of federal funding to help. But I thought it was very informative. And the most part, I'd say I don't know how many speakers we had, probably 20 different speakers. And I'd say 18 of them were good, well worth listening to.
Yeah. Yeah. What were some of those classes the second day, or the topics the second day?
Well, I try not to be offended because I spoke on the first day, but that's all right.
Yeah, that river report was interesting.
Yeah, and some of the items I just listed here is we talked about transmission issues that, to get new lines in 4 to 5 years, the carbon reduction challenges. It's interesting, and I didn't write down on these notes of the fellow that presented, just noted that meeting 2040 and 2050 goals are going to be extremely difficult, let alone people touting 2030 and 2035. So the SMR was a good one, hydrogen, and the drought on the Colorado River and the impacts. And that's honestly some of the reasons we're seeing the prices we are, is we aren't getting the output from the hydro plants in the West that we normally would or should this time of year.
And even though we're not drawing that much from those, it still
Correct.
affects us because it affects the power.
Pricing, exactly. The extreme weather events I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And then Joey Ditto from APPA, who's their CEO, on carbon reductions and supply chain issues. It was good to have her there as well. So I do appreciate all those that attended. We had some council, Councilman Ivy, and 2 Power Board. Jeremy was able to attend, and then we had Mike and Tyler from our staff go as well. So it was well attended and informative. I wish there was a magical, here, sign up for this and make all these challenges go away. But I think it's good to be aware of a little broader picture than what we see just as Washington as well.
And I do think the more that we attend those, the more of a need that we can see that we have for nuclear. And I'm glad we're headed in that direction, because the carbon issues and everything else that they're having, and the issues with California, we can definitely tell that there's going to be bigger problems with power down the road.
Yeah, and I don't know if people have paid attention, but the California governor, I think it was yesterday or for at least today, they're allowing natural gas units to run. They want to stay green until they figure out that it won't work, and so then but somebody's got to pay for those to sit there 363 days of the year, so they can use them 2 days a year. So
And there's
again,
maintenance,
that's an
maintenance
expensive
issues with that too.
Yeah.
But there are also some people within the state there, they're talking about Palo Verde maybe shouldn't be
About shutting down,
decommissioned.
yeah.
And
It'll be interesting to see how a lot of that plays out, because I think in a lot of areas we're getting to the point where some of the operational challenges are really starting to come to the surface, that a lot of the low-hanging fruit, for lack of a better, with solar and wind, have been picked, And that was one of the discussions, is getting, they talked about getting to 50% renewable was, doable, 75%, maybe. And then you start getting into those higher percentages and you have to install 5-6 times what you need. And then you got to have all this massive batteries. And it's not just as simple as a lot of people try to make it sound. And so I think that's why we're starting to see there's more and more organizations, states, they're saying, well, maybe nuclear's not quite so bad after all, because there isn't really even if you can find a solar project that's cheap, it's not the same as a resource that you can dispatch 24/7. There's just no way around that. I mean, that's just the physics of it. And they're all pieces to a puzzle. And we just got to figure out how to try to bring that puzzle together. But again, thank you for attending. That I know takes time and effort and away from your family, although you brought
Yeah,
your wife with you. So
it was rough duty.
As I mentioned before, one of the things that we'll be focusing on is trying to figure out what, the carbon freeze 2029, 2030. So that's still 6-7 years away. And so we've got to figure out how to plug that hole, and having some of those discussions with UAMPS. We'll talk about some of the projects that did come to pass and which ones may not come to pass. And so that wholesale part of things is a big worry or stress on myself and the department to figure out how to solve that one. We didn't have a Central St. George meeting. We had kind of reduced meetings because of the annual conference. So not much to report on that project. The Payson project, the Nebo project there, it's been running really well. It's running 24/7 during this period, and we keep our toes and fingers crossed that it keeps going. In contrast, its cost right now is about 75, I think is what they reported. So 75 or 1,000, which would you rather have? So so we're glad we have that. I wish we had more of that right now. The Vail plant's been running well. Apparently they've been compressing quite a bit of gas to send to different places to run their generators. One good thing to report, and we don't have the full implications, and they did talk about this at the conference, is the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed by Congress. It did include some tax, I don't know if you want to call them incentives, but basically, historically, investor-owned utilities, private companies, they could get tax incentives for solar, wind, even nuclear, carbon resources, but municipalities and the co-ops were not able to take advantage of that. So it put us at a disadvantage. And this new act basically brings us back to on par with the other IOUs and the other people in the generating space. And again, they don't know all the final details, but it could make as much as $14, $15 a megawatt hour difference on the carbon free project, which is huge. So getting that incentive or at least levelizing the playing field with other players was a very positive thing, regardless of your political persuasion and if you think that was a good act or not. That had some potential really good benefits for not just the CFPP, but really any project that municipals want to do that would qualify under that act. So, which historically we've been at a disadvantage for that. Just to report, the council approved, which you did at the special meeting last month, the Red Mesa PPA on the August 24th meeting. They've actually scheduled a tour of the site on the 16th, so not this Friday, but the next Friday I'll be going over and actually seeing the site. And kind of a cousin to that, we've approved the steel solar. After the Logan meetings, I went up to Idaho to visit some family, and on the way back, I-15 goes right by through Plymouth. So I stopped, and the steel solar does exist, at least in some form. The substation's going in. If you zoom in, I don't know 100% sure. I'm not smart enough to work like this gray box out here. I'm pretty sure is one of the inverters. Look like switch gear that was out there. And then this is on the other side of the road from the sub. These would be part of the collector system before it goes into the sub. So this huge site, graded and fenced, and I didn't dare get too creative in my personal car wandering around, but so it was good to see that. And there was materials on site, and there were people working, so I took that as a real positive. The Enchant project, which was the carbon capture, or the current owners of the plant were planning on shutting it down. An investment group was going to buy it, still run it on coal, but do a carbon capture. Unfortunately, the news on that project, due to plant acquisition, coal supply, transmission, and other issues, I don't give it a really good chance of coming to pass for us. So, which is unfortunate, because we had about 5 megawatts in that project that we were hoping to have next year, which it doesn't appear like that we're going to have. So that's part of the challenges too. You think you have a plan and you're going forward, and then it doesn't materialize. So now we've got to figure out what to do. And UAMPS is well aware, because as a group, we had about 100 megawatts in that project. So that people were planning on and anticipated being there. And there's a lot of factors that it would be a pleasant surprise if it comes back and looks like a viable project. So probably no more on that at September or October UAMPS meeting. So keep you posted on that. The Muddy Creek, which is a heat recovery up in Wyoming, not a lot of movement there. Hopefully their target to present the updated estimate to the EPC contract is at the October UAMPS meeting, so probably won't have much detail to report here until November on that project. We have kicked off a geothermal study project, and that study results should be here by the end of the year. And that should hopefully at least identify potential sizing and sites that we could look at. Again, that's, starting from scratch, so it's not going to be here in the next 2 or 3 years. It'll be a little ways out there before a project like that can be developed. And finally, I'm going to probably go through these slides on the carbon-free project fairly quickly. The main thing on this project, the development of the COLA documents and those kind of things are on track, doing well. Sean does a great job. New Scales is anticipating their design certification soon. That is kind of with the asterisk, that's a 50 megawatt unit and a 12 unit plant. So ours is 77 and 6, so it's a little different, same technology, but this work can be built on with the NRC. This is again on New Scale. They plan to submit their standard plant design by the end of this year, and along with that, the standard design application. And so the idea with this approach is not only so much for our project, but for future projects, if they can get the plant itself certified and approved by the NRC, then other deployments mainly become a site issue, because they want to say, I want one of those and I'm going to put it here. Well, the NRC's already bought off on the one of those. You know, they know the technology and how and so it becomes more of a site issue, which in the long run of things should expedite the process, is what everybody's hoping. The emergency planning zone, they're working on that. New Scale's hope is, and the initial indications from the NRC is they'd only require basically the fence of the plant instead of a 10-mile emergency zone like they do on traditional plants, because of the advanced safety features. Probably the biggest thing that will be coming up here shortly, and in fact, in one of these slides that mentions it, as part of our September UAMPS meetings, there will actually have a full day meeting just on the CFPP and the cost estimate and all things associated with that. So I'll actually be going up Sunday night, and Monday and part of Tuesday will be dedicated to the project, with this class 3 estimate being the main deliverable that we'll be going over. So it's a refined estimate from what we've had. I'm not sure if they plan to have the LCOE or the cost of the power available at that, but we'll go through that and they'll explain all the things in the meetings that they've been going with. Again, they continue. Sean, who's was the moderator, I don't know if those that were there, he's the UAMPS lead on the CFPP project, was the moderator of the SMR discussion. And so he's, from the technical side of things, I feel really good where the project is and how things are moving forward. And that last item here is the meeting in September. So what that means, that there's going to be a point in the near future where we're going to have a new cost run and basically a decision point to continue down that path or something else. So,
But the latest information we have is things are on track as far as time-wise and budget, right? No
yes,
new surprises.
particularly on the COLA submittal documents, obviously that's not affected by supply chain issues and labor costs in quite the same way. And that's really where we're starting to get kind of call it the hockey stick. And then once we get through the study, once you go to construction, those costs are just going to skyrocket really fast. And so again, the progress on the study part, they report that they're ahead of schedule, at or just below budget. I think things are moving well there. The field activities are completed. So there won't be a whole lot of activity on the site itself now until closer to construction. They continue to work with Excel Nuclear Energy Services is what they're calling the company that would operate the plant, which is a extension of Excel Energy, who currently operates plants. Continue to work on the contracts with NuScale, the OEM, Fluor, the EPC, maintenance and operation budgets, which would be with that NES, too much alphabet soup, XNES, I guess that might be what they're calling them. And so they're working on that. And then this one I thought was kind of interesting. There is international interest in the progress that the project's made. So they've had visit from Japan, Czech Republic, and Romania in just the last couple of months that have met with UAMPS and/or NuScale and kind of poking around to see where things are at. So they're a lot of new interest in these plants. The biggest downside and to report, or Grant County, which is in Washington, which had originally talked about 150 megawatt interest. They've officially decided not to participate, and instead they're going to do their own SMR in their service territory with the X Energy SMR instead of the NuScale technology. So the subscription continues to be the biggest challenge for the project to move forward, in my mind. Is we need people to help out make it happen. I wish I had an answer to that. Who knows, maybe some of these power prices will jog people's and kind of see the writing on the wall. If we don't have some of these plants, we're going to have these kind of events, every time the temperature goes up in the west. Are we going to bankrupt all the utilities? It doesn't make sense, where we can have a dispatchable resource that we can count on at a known price. So, and that's my UAMPS report. Any questions?
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for attending that conference, guys. And I'll be glad. My last one's in school, so that comes that first week of school, so I won't have to worry about that next year. But
In Jackson, so.
all right. Any other comments or questions? All right. Next month, what's our date for our next meeting?
Should be October 4th.
October 4th? Okay, so our next meeting's October 4th. And I don't see conflicts with that one, do we? We will have a conflict the next month, correct? Is it the week after?
Yeah, they moved the election for some, I don't know all the.
Okay, well, good, okay. So October 4th will be our next meeting until then, so motion to adjourn.
I'll go ahead and motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, Todd did the first and Mark did the second, so Dick, do you want to start the vote?
Saunders, aye.
Todd,
Spriggs, aye.
Mark,
Hauser, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. Well, thank you everyone for attending. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
everyone who presented this month too.